In the first stanza of the poem A Day by Emily Dickinson, the poet talks about the morning sun coming up. She describes it in a really beautiful way. Instead of just saying the sun rises, she compares it to a ribbon slowly being unfolded. Imagine if you were carefully unrolling a ribbon bit by bit. That's how the poet describes the sun rising, as if it's happening gently and gradually. Then she talks about how the sunlight makes the steeples, those tall pointed parts of some buildings, often seen on churches, look like they're swimming in amethyst. Amethyst is a purple gemstone, so it's like she's saying the sunlight makes everything look purple and magical. So when you read this part of the poem, you can imagine the morning sun slowly coming up, like unfolding a ribbon, and making everything look purple and enchanting. It's a really beautiful way to describe the start of the day. In the second stanza of the poem A Day by Emily Dickinson, the poet talks about what happens in the morning. She says that children are learning and growing while the sun is shining on them. This means that when the sun comes up, it helps the children to learn new things and become better. The poet uses this imagery to show how the children are innocent and full of potential, just like the morning sun brings hope and new beginnings. It's like saying that every day is a chance to start fresh and discover new things. So when you read this part of the poem, you can imagine children playing and learning in the morning sunlight, full of hope and ready to grow and discover new things. It's a beautiful way to think about the start of a new day. In the third stanza of the poem Every Morning I Wake by Dylan Thomas, the poet talks about how people are not just good or bad, but a mixture of both. He mentions a place called Milkwood, which is a made-up town in Wales. The poet says that the people who live there are not only defined by their mistakes or good deeds. Instead, the poet believes that there is something greater, referred to as thou, that sees the best parts of people rather than just their flaws. This means that even though everyone has both good and bad sides, there is something bigger that sees the good in them. So, when you read this part of the poem, you can understand that people are not perfect, but there is still goodness in them, and there is something greater that sees that goodness. It's a way of thinking that reminds us to focus on the good in ourselves and others, even if we sometimes make mistakes. In the fourth stanza of the poem Every Morning I Wake by Dylan Thomas, the poet talks about the end of the day. He prays for blessings for everyone as the night begins. The poet seems hopeful and prayerful, meaning he's wishing good things for everyone as they go to sleep. He also says goodbye to the sun, which means he's saying farewell to the daylight as it turns into nighttime. It's like he's thanking the sun for being there during the day, and now it's time to say goodbye as the night comes. So when you read this part of the poem, you can understand that the poet is wishing good things for everyone as they go to sleep and saying goodbye to the sun as it sets. It's a hopeful and peaceful way to end the day.